This content is produced by Pass the CSLB, an independent audio-first study companion for busy California B general candidates. I build these lessons from official CSLB study guide topics and reputable source-backed California materials so you can study on the go. This is exam prep reinforcement, not legal, professional, engineering, or job-specific advice. Exam content is set by PSI and the CSLB and may change, so always verify current requirements against official CSLB materials. No exam outcome is guaranteed. Now let's get into it. A roof sheathing job can look complete and still fail as a diaphragm. The panels may cover every rafter, yet the load path can be weak because the edges are unsupported, the nail pattern is wrong, the nails miss the framing, or the nail heads crush too deeply into the panel. The central idea I want you to hold is simple. Roof sheathing does not become a structural diaphragm merely because wood covers the roof. It becomes a diaphragm when the panels, framing, supported edges, and fasteners work together exactly as the approved design requires. Think about a shipping box with the top open. The sides can rack because the box has no firm lid tying them together. Fold the top close and secure it continuously, and the box becomes much harder to twist. A frame building is more complicated than a box, but the memory connection is useful. The sheathing is the lid. The nailing pattern is the connection that makes the lid participate. A missed rafter is like tape stuck to open air. An overdriven nail is like tape that tore through the cardboard. A panel edge clip can help adjacent panel edges stay level, but it is not the same as fastening those edges to solid blocking. Official preparation resources identify roof framing as a key area. For a general building contractor, the practical skill is supervision. I need to know what to verify before sheathing starts, what to watch while the crew is moving, what defects require correction, and when the approved structural plans control a choice that should never be improvised. A diaphragm is a flat structural unit that transfers lateral force across the building to the vertical elements designed to resist it. A roof diaphragm can be understood as a deep, thin beam lying flat. The panel field carries shear across the roof plane. Members along the boundary collect tension and compression. Drag struts and other collector elements deliver force where the structural design sends it. That description matters because it explains why the perimeter and the panel joints deserve so much attention. The roof is not just carrying gravity loads down through rafters or trusses. During wind or earthquake loading, the roof plane also has to transfer force sideways. The fasteners are small, but each one is part of that transfer. The approved schedule is not decorative repetition. It is the connection pattern that turns separate sheets into one structural system. I never want a contractor to treat a familiar field habit as a substitute for the plan. A crew may have used the same gun, nail, and spacing for years. That experience is valuable, but the current project still controls. The structural plan's applicable code requirements, panel span rating, framing species, and design conditions can change the required fastener or spacing. The general building supervisory boundary is clear. I follow the structural plans. I do not invent a fastener pattern. Suppose a crew decides that a few extra nails in random places will make up for a missed line of framing. That does not create the same load path. A nail through the panel that misses the rafter or truss has no framing withdrawal resistance. It may look like a fastener from above, but structurally, it is a shiner. The immediate condition is a hole through the panel with no connection below. If enough fasteners miss, the intended line of shear transfer is incomplete. The proper response is to identify the framing line, correct the fastening, and verify the work before it disappears under roofing. Panel placement begins with the strength axis. Wood structural panels are installed with the long dimension, the strength direction, perpendicular to the supporting framing members. On a conventional roof, that usually means the long panel dimension crosses the rafters or trusses rather than running with them. I still verify the panel grade stamp, span rating, approved plans, and layout, because a general habit never overrides a project-specific requirement. The panels also need room for normal dimensional movement. The source report calls for a continuous 1/8 inch gap at panel ends and edges. That small gap is easy to lose when a crew drives sheets tight with a sledge or forces the last panel into a row. Without the specified gap, the panels lose the intended allowance for normal expansion. The field decision is not complicated. Set the gap consistently as the panels are laid rather than trying to create it after the roof is covered. The gap does not mean an edge can be left structurally unsupported when the design requires blocking. Spacing and support solve different problems. The gap allows movement. Blocking provides a fastening surface and transfers load across the joint. A contractor who remembers only one of those ideas can still end up with the wrong assembly. Panel edge clips are another common source of confusion. Where the approved design or panel span rating calls for them, the clips are installed between supports to help adjacent panel edges share vertical load and limit differential deflection. They can keep one sheet edge from moving independently of the next under normal roof loading. That is useful, but a clip is not solid lumber blocking, and it does not convert an unblocked roof diaphragm into a blocked diaphragm for lateral shear calculations. I would make that distinction during layout, not after the whole roof is nailed. Before the first row gets far ahead, I check whether panel joints are supposed to land over framing, whether solid blocking is required, where clips are called for, and whether the crew can actually reach every required connection. Good sequencing prevents the classic late discovery that a joint needing blocking is already buried between finished panel rows. The nailing pattern is where an old memory can cause a current mistake. Many contractors learned the familiar 6 inches at panel edges and 12 inches in the field. The source report specifically warns not to carry that pattern into the current baseline roof sheathing rule. For standard prescriptive roof sheathing described in the report, fasteners are spaced at a maximum of 6 inches on center at supported panel edges and 6 inches on center at intermediate supports. Looking at this reference, I want you to see the phrase 6 in 6. 6 inches maximum at supported edges, 6 inches maximum in the field along intermediate framing. Maximum means the spacing may be closer when the approved design requires it, but it may not be open wider merely because the crew is used to a different schedule. This is a testable concept based on the published Contractor State License Board study outline, because roof framing supervision includes reading and enforcing fastening requirements. I am not predicting a particular exam question. I am teaching the distinction that prevents a contractor from applying a wall or floor memory to a roof diaphragm. The layout of the nail lines matters as much as the spacing. A perfect row at 6 inches does nothing if the row runs beside the rafter. I watch the first sheets closely. I verify the framing line, confirm the fastener is entering the member, and look underneath where possible for shiners. If the crew is using a pneumatic gun, I also check pressure and depth before production speed takes over. Fastener type is not a casual substitution. The source report identifies roof sheathing ring shank fasteners as part of the California prescriptive requirements. For panels up to 3/4 inch thick, the report identifies 8 penny common nails or roof sheathing ring shank 01 fasteners in the applicable schedule. It also explains that lower density framing can require the heavier roof sheathing ring shank 03 fastener. The threshold given in the report is framing specific gravity from 0.35 through 0.42. In that range, the thicker roof sheathing ring shank 03 fastener is specified to maintain withdrawal capacity. Specific gravity is simply a way to describe wood density for this decision. Less dense framing provides less withdrawal resistance to the same smooth fastener, so the required nail changes. I do not expect a superintendent to guess density from color or feel. I verify the framing species and the specified fastener against the approved information. Ring shank nails gain withdrawal resistance from the ridges around the shank. Those ridges engage the wood fibers rather than relying only on a smooth shank. The useful memory connection is grip, not magic. The ring pattern improves the mechanical hold, but it does not excuse a nail that misses framing, a head driven through the panel surface, or spacing that exceeds the schedule. Blocked and unblocked roof diaphragms use similar words but do not have the same lateral capacity. In a blocked diaphragm, adjacent panel edges are continuously supported by common framing or solid blocking and are fastened as the design requires. In an unblocked diaphragm, the panel edges between rafters or trusses are not supported by solid blocking. Even though the panels are fastened along the framing members, that do support them. The comparison on screen separates three conditions. Solid blocking creates a supported and fastened panel boundary. An unblocked joint has no solid support beneath that edge. A panel edge clip helps control vertical edge movement, but it still leaves the diaphragm classified as unblocked for lateral shear design. California permits an unblocked roof diaphragm when it is designed using the allowable values for that condition. That is different from an unblocked shear wall. The source report states that unblocked shear walls are prohibited, while unblocked roof diaphragms may be used when the structural design accounts for their reduced capacity. This is exactly the kind of terminology trap that rewards slow reading. Roof diaphragm and shear wall are not interchangeable phrases. I do not decide in the field that blocking seems unnecessary because clips are present. I also do not add blocking casually where it conflicts with ventilation, truss details, mechanical routing, or another approved condition. I read the structural plan, coordinate the work, and install the assembly that was designed. The supported effect is straightforward. Blocking gives the panel edge a continuous framing surface for fasteners, so shear can transfer across that joint through the specified connection. Without that support, the design uses lower allowable diaphragm values. The clip can share vertical load between sheet edges, but it is not a nailed structural boundary member. Remember, the phrase support is not classification. A clip supports an edge vertically, but it does not classify the diaphragm as blocked. Overdriven nails deserve their own inspection because they can create a roof that looks heavily fastened while losing connection capacity. The nail head should secure the panel without punching deeply through the structural surface layer. When the gun pressure is too high, the head crushes fibers and damages the veneer or strand layer at the exact location where load transfers from panel to framing. The remediation rule has two trigger conditions. Under dry conditions, fasteners driven no more than 1/16 inch below the panel surface do not require a shear reduction under the guidance summarized in the report. Corrective fastening is triggered when more than 20% of the perimeter fasteners are overdriven by more than 1/16 inch, or when any single fastener is overdriven by more than 1/8 inch. When either trigger applies, the stated correction is one additional properly driven fastener for every 2 overdriven fasteners. I want you to hear the ratio clearly. 1 extra for every 2 overdriven. That rule can prevent an unnecessary tear-off, but it is not permission to ignore gun setup. The best repair is still the defect that never gets produced. The exact placement of added fasteners still has to respect the approved correction and the framing below. I do not scatter nails into unsupported panel space. I make sure every added fastener enters the intended member and is driven to the proper depth. A shiner is a different defect. The overdriven rule assumes the nail actually entered framing and that the issue is damaged panel material around the head. A nail that misses the framing provides no holding power to that member. Adding 1 nail for every 2 shiners is not the stated remediation. The missed connection has to be properly fastened into framing. Roof sheathing supervision also includes the fall exposure created while the diaphragm is being built. The source report states that employees installing starter board, roof sheathing, and fascia board must receive fall protection when the walking or working surface is 6 feet or more above the lower level. The first line in the safety reference is the number I want you to retain, 6 feet. The older 15-foot memory is not the current rule described in the report for this work. On roof slopes from level through 7 units of rise and 12 units of run, the 6-foot trigger applies. On slopes steeper than 7 units of rise and 12 units of run, employees must be protected, regardless of height. Fall distance is measured vertically from the employee's walking or working surface to the ground or level below. A parapet does not get subtracted from that vertical distance. A compliant guardrail condition may provide protection, but the parapet does not rewrite the measurement. Conventional fall protection is the default. The report identifies methods such as scaffolding, guardrails, safety nets, and personal fall arrest systems. A written site-specific plan using safety monitors and controlled access is not a convenience option that an employer chooses because tie-off takes time. That alternative is permitted only when the employer demonstrates that conventional methods are infeasible or would create a greater hazard. The plan must be prepared by a qualified person and applies to the specific site. I connect this safety rule to sequencing. Fall protection cannot be an afterthought installed once the crew is already exposed. Anchors, access, guardrails, scaffolding, or another compliant method have to be planned before workers step into the hazard. That planning may affect how starter board is placed, how sheets are delivered, and how the crew moves across open framing. The protection method and the sheathing sequence have to work together. I use a compact field check to keep this topic practical. First, I read the approved structural plan and roof sheathing schedule. I identify panel thickness, span rating, orientation, blocking, clips, fastener type, and spacing. I also confirm the fall protection method before roof work begins. Second, I watch the setup rather than waiting for a finished roof. I check that the long panel dimension crosses the supporting framing, that the 1/8 inch gaps are maintained, and that required blocking or clips are in place before access closes. I verify that nail lines hit framing. Third, I inspect the connection itself. I confirm the 6-inch maximum pattern at supported edges and intermediate supports for the baseline condition described in the report, unless the approved design requires a tighter or different schedule. I confirm the specified nail, proper penetration into framing, and a head that is not overdriven. Fourth, I separate defects instead of treating every bad nail the same. A shiner missed the member and must be corrected into framing. A slightly countersunk nail within the stated tolerance is not the same as a widespread overdrive condition. When the overdrive triggers are exceeded, I apply the approved one for 2 corrective ratio and verify each added fastener is properly driven into framing. Fifth, I classify the panel edge honestly. Solid blocking and fastening can create a blocked edge. A panel edge clip can support adjacent sheets vertically, but it does not turn the roof diaphragm into a blocked diaphragm for lateral design. When the plan calls for an unblocked diaphragm, I do not assume that means defective. I verify that the design actually specifies and allows that condition. Here's the memory chain I use. Plan, place, space, fasten, inspect, protect. Plan means follow the structural documents. Place means strength axis and panel layout. Space means the 1/8 inch panel gap. Fasten means the correct nail and 6-6 baseline pattern. Inspect means shiners, overdrives, blocking, and clips. Protect means the 6-foot fall trigger and a compliant method planned before exposure. That chain is not a substitute for the plans. It is a supervisor's way to remember where errors hide. The heart of the lesson stays the same. A diaphragm is a connected system. Panel coverage alone is not enough. The framing support, edge condition, fastener type, spacing, depth, and worker protection all have to be verified as the work progresses. There is an audio practice quiz for this specific episode on roof sheathing, blocking, and nailing patterns. It is audio-based. I read the questions aloud, and you answer by tapping, which is built for people studying while driving, working, or moving through the day. Go to the description below this video. You will see a link that says Pass the CSLB. Tap it. It will take you straight there. Comment below with any questions about roof diaphragms, panel gaps, blocking, nail patterns, overdriven fasteners, or fall protection. I read those questions because they show me where a working contractor needs a cleaner explanation. Subscribe so I can help you stay on track through every episode until you get your license. I know this study time has to fit around real jobs and real responsibilities, and I am here to make each session count.